Welcome to Happier ADHD. My name's Marley Darling. I'm a second generation neurodiversity expert with over 17 years experience, and now I'm raising my own neurodiverse kids. You'll notice that I call the podcast a few different things, but we always explore these same topics that I've been looking at for the last 17 years. Psychology, mindset, neurodiversity, personal development, health and well-being, business, parenting, and more. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Hey there, darling. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you've had a really great week. We're going to dive straight into the first segment, Little Big Thing, with a bit of a story. Now, if you are a mum, if you're an ADHD mum especially, you've probably had the experience where you're rushing out the door, you're running late, and then you forget something and you have to go back in to get the thing. You're running even later. And often what happens in this situation is we stress ourselves out, right? For some reason, we think if we just stress ourselves out, if we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves and tell ourselves, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, that's going to somehow propel us forward and make us go faster. Well, just like if you're driving a car and speeding 1 kilometer over the speed limit, it's actually not going to get you there much faster at all. And you're better off driving at a normal speed, not getting a speeding ticket, not having any problems along the way, and just accept that you're going to be a couple of minutes late. What happens when we are rushing out the door is that we spike our nervous system. If we tell ourselves, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, we're not actually going faster. Or you can move your body quickly without this mental and emotional pressure. Because when you spike your nervous system like that, that means then we have to come back down from that spike. We have to undo the damage. And if you're rushing out the door like that, chances are you're going to be driving somewhere. So you want to be focused and not stressed when you're driving. You're probably with your children or going to somewhere important that you don't want to be stressed out. You want to be calm, present, available, and able to do the thing that you need to do without a level of stress. So the little big thing of this week was that I managed to do this. I was rushing out the door. I had to come back in to grab something. And I thought, you know what? It's just going to take as long as it takes. And that's just the fact. It will always take as long as it takes. So take your time. Don't dawdle, but don't stress yourself out thinking that putting the pressure on is going to be some kind of turbo button. It's not going to give you turbo speed. You can do the action without the stress. And that's going to be better for everyone. You'll make sure that you don't get a stress addiction in your body. You won't build this up as a habit of pressuring yourself and stressing yourself out and always feeling like you have to hurry along to the next thing. And you'll be a better role model for your kids as well. So that's something that I'm practicing and integrating and allowing myself to take time, because being somewhere 5 minutes late is not the end of the world. And if it feels like it, then we can implement strategies to change that and be on time next time. But stressing it out is not going to be some kind of magic solution. Okay, now moving on to On My Mind. And on my mind this week is consistency, but consistency the ADHD way. Because when we try to do consistency like neurotypicals, it just doesn't work. We don't have this steady, consistent 9 to 5 work habit behavior. And people talk about this in terms of men compared to women. So the 9 to 5 day being made for a men's work cycle, because a man has a daily hormonal cycle, whereas women have a monthly cycle and things change throughout the month. So as ADHD women, we have that double whammy of we have this hormonal cycle throughout the month, and then I notice all these cycles through ADHD as well. And when we talk about consistency the ADHD way, that doesn't look like doing the same thing every day. That doesn't look like maintaining a daily habit constantly and being able to work on an ongoing basis without breaks. Sometimes that looks like we take a big break from something And because we're trying to do things the neurotypical way, if we take a break, if we go through this ADHD cycle of work, it can end up that we don't come back to it. And my trick is learning to come back to the same thing. Now, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I want to talk about it in a slightly different way. What I've said previously is that when we learn to come back to the same thing, we can build on that. And if we need to have a distraction, a different project, if we need to switch it up for our brain, then we can have a project on the side or a hobby on the side. But the aim is to have everything lead to the same place. That can give you the novelty of dabbling around in different ways, but still being consistent in terms of working towards the same thing. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about how this has showed up in my own life, because I know that's representative of so many different ADHD women. For me, it took me a long while to figure out exactly where I was headed in business. I've known I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 12, and I started my first business when I was 17. And I've always had so many ideas. There are so many different things out there that would be fun to do. And it took me a while to find the core thread, and the thing that I kept coming back to, was passionate about, and have been headed towards my whole life, which is working with children, psychology, and neurodiversity. That's something I've been doing my whole life. Even when I was a teenager, I was volunteering with kids' workshops and doing babysitting and playing teacher. And then when I was a bit older, volunteering in schools, teaching kids yoga. And since the time that I was 14, I've been studying psychology and personal development, and how to create the best life possible and have good habits. But the way that I've expressed this along the years has changed. And there's been a lot of stopping and starting, which can be a really typical thing for ADHD entrepreneurs. When I was 17, I knew I wanted to be a life coach of some sort, but I felt like that was a little bit shallow. I knew there was something more to it. At the time, it was pretty much just that, and I didn't even see any female role models. It was all males like Tony Robbins and all those kinds of self-help books. And at that time, I did a course which came on CD-ROMs for life coaching. But I didn't let myself be a life coach at that stage because I felt like I was too young and didn't have the experience. Then as I went on, I wanted to coach for mothers a bit later on. So when I was a teenager, I was coaching for my friends, and I did some career coaching. And then when I had my kids, I knew that I wanted to do something with mums. When I restarted my podcast earlier this year, I looked back on when I had first started a podcast and the different podcasts I'd done along the way. Now, all these podcasts had a slightly different bent to them, but they're all about creating a life which feels fulfilling. The first episode I ever created was about parenting. That was a little experimental episode which didn't end up going anywhere. It was just something that I tried and tested out. And then the next time I created a podcast, I think it was more about manifestation and mindset and goal setting. And then the third iteration was more of that, but maybe under a different business name. And that's the one that I've been going on from here. So I had Energy Empress, and then I changed it to ADHD Energy Empress because I realized that everything I was teaching was for ADHD women specifically. That's who I want to help, because there's an extra difficulty and extra little tricks that we need to use. And so many people, even the teachers out there, even the professionals, are just not getting it. They're really missing that. What we don't need is learning how to fit in with the neurotypical mold. We don't need strategies for that. We actually need to take it back an extra layer and look at the core functioning of ADHD and how we work differently, and therefore how we need to do things differently. So that's the current iteration of the podcast. And when I looked at it, I realized that I'd been podcasting for years. I'd been on and off about it, but if that had all been on one podcast show, if that had all been under one name, then I would have been building this one body of work. Plenty of podcasters take a break from what they're doing. They might take 6 months off, even a year, and it still builds this body of work with this recognizable name, and you can go back and look through all these different things. So I felt quite proud that I'd been podcasting for quite a while. But I also realized that if I had just kept building that same thing, then I would have been working towards the same place. And like I said, it took a while for me to learn that. And it's really normal to go through this experimental phase of figuring out what you really want, where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to be. But the lesson I want to share today is that consistency is about picking up where you left off and always moving in the same direction. So there can be side quests, there can be things that you learn about yourself, but if they all come back together to help you find, well, what's the common thread here? What am I working towards? Then that's when it becomes really powerful and you can start creating consistency towards one goal. If you always start building a new bridge, you're never going to finish building a single bridge. Imagine having all these half-built bridges. Those are all your projects. That's all the different places you're going. If you can always come back to the same path and build a bridge to cross the river on that path, then you'll get to the other side instead of having all these half-built things. And if you decide that you don't want to follow through with a project, instead of burning it down, you can leave that bridge there later to maybe come back to it. Maybe it will prove useful. So in terms of my podcast, from now on, it would just be under the one name unless I completely change niche, but I'm pretty sure this is what I'm doing now. This is what I've been doing since I was 14 years old, learning about psychology and personal development and how to implement that. And I've been experimenting and finding out what works for the neurodiverse brain. So this looks like this is it for me, and I will continue building that bridge and getting to the other side. And it's so exciting to have things in the one place and be building a body of work. So I wish that for you too. I hope you find the common thread and where you want to go and can learn to continue building that one bridge until you get all the way through, because you're really not going to know what it's like on the other side until you finish that bridge. It's the same for business as well, or a type of exercise. If you initially think, hey, this is the path I want to take because I want the results from the other side. If you're not seeing results when you've half built the bridge, it's because you haven't built the bridge all the way to the other side. This is what we need. We need this metaphor of bridge building. You've got to follow through. And in business, that can often show up as you feel like a certain strategy is going to work to get you grow your audience. But then say you do it half-heartedly, or you do it for a certain amount of time and don't see results. That's not the time to burn the bridge down. It's the time to think, well, how can I finish this bridge off? How can I keep following through until I see results, or maybe tweak it and change what I'm doing just a little bit? Or even perhaps persevere along that path and then need to build another bridge and say, well, where are we going to go from here? Rather than going, oh, this didn't work. This bridge that I've half built or only just finished hasn't taken me to where I want to go. That's a really common thing, to start analyzing and assessing things when the big bridge isn't even built yet, and then going to start building another bridge and then always saying, well, why isn't this working? Why aren't I on the other side? So give that a go and try and apply that to your life. And however many breaks you need to take while you're building the bridge is fine. The aim is not to be consistent in terms of 9 to 5 every single day, not that kind of consistency. The aim is to keep on going, always pick up where you left off. And if you take a break, the more we jump back on the wagon, we can minimize that break. We can keep taking those breaks. We can get caught up in analyzing too much, but the more we get back on the wagon and the more we can reduce that gap, that's how we create that consistency the ADHD way. It's always getting back on the wagon, always picking up where you left off. And you'll go from having big breaks to actually training yourself to be more consistent and hop back on that wagon and move towards a common goal. Always heading along that path until eventually you'll get where you want to go. So that's a bit about consistency the ADHD way. Now I'm going to move on to wins and workarounds. I talked a little bit earlier about your nervous system and when you're stressing out to get out the door and how that's ineffective because it just stresses your nervous system out. The nervous system is such a core to so many things. Like even with that consistency we just talked about, often what happens is we talk ourselves out of consistency or we're burnt out and we don't feel like we have the energy. So coming back to the nervous system and looking after that first can help you feel better and then function better in literally every way, because it helps that prefrontal cortex stay online. It helps you think, it helps with all executive functioning. So dealing with that first, dealing with any stress and resetting the nervous system is like a magic key to unlock all the doors. So if you find yourself in any situation needing a bit of a nervous system reset, there's little hacks that you can do to help that. And I'm really big on using small, simple hacks, small shifts that have big impact, rather than anything complicated that's going to be hard to remember or that you're just not going to want to do, because the ADHD brain resists anything complicated or super boring. So we really just want that quick fix. My absolute favorite nervous system hack is just to breathe out longer than you breathe in. Forget all those complicated breathing patterns. I don't know about you, but I find it really hard to do like box breathing where you have to count to 4 while you're breathing in, then you have to pause for 4, then you have to breathe out for 4, then you have to pause for 4. I just lose track too easily and it's just feels like really hard work. You can get the same effect by breathing out longer than you breathe in. That will reset your nervous system. And that's because if you were doing the opposite, if you were stressed, you would be doing lots of shallow breaths. So if you have the time to take long breaths out, that shows your body that you're safe. You're not running away from a tiger across the plains or something like that. And this is a great hack because it's so easy to remember and you can do it anywhere, anytime. Just a few of these breaths can help calm you down. This is a really great one to use with kids as well because it is so simple. And sometimes if they're dysregulated, if they're really hyperactive, they'll be really silly about it. And they'll think, oh, this is funny. Mum wants me to breathe out for a really long time. But you can use little tricks like I'll just pull my hair out to the side and hold it a certain distance from them. And I'll say, hey, can you breathe out long enough that your breath will get to my hair and make my hair move? And they might think that's really silly and do it in like a hyperactive way. But if they do it a few times, it does start to bring them down and ground them a little bit. So that's my absolute favorite nervous system hack. But I'm really excited to share with you something that I've been working on, and that's a resource library. I've got this up on my website and it's to give you a taste of what I'm offering inside my Happier ADHD program. And that doesn't mean that you have to come across to the program, but I'm just so passionate about helping people with this stuff. I'm really passionate about helping ADHD mums so they can feel better and function better and so their families can be more harmonious and so you don't have to struggle and stress every day. So I'm creating this resource library where you can get hacks and cheat sheets and toolkits and mini masterclasses and workshops. And even my favorite thing probably is that I'm creating audios. I really love to create audios, and I spoke in a few episodes ago how I'm a bit of a word artist. That's how I can bring together everything I like to do. I like to work with words. I like to share information. I like to do podcasts. And one of my favorite things is to record audio meditations. I love doing my Elvario meditations for kids because I can really just get into the flow. And now I'm creating some for adults. I'm calling it Press Play Solutions because some of them are there to help you in the moment, to be there with you, to hold your hand, to help you reset, in terms of your nervous system, your emotions, your mindset, and your body. So one that I've recently created is for calm in the chaos. And that's so you can just put on your headphones and I'll be there with you talking it through. Like there's chaos around you. But despite that, we can come back to our center, come back to ourselves, get some perspective. This can be really hard to do by yourself because you get so caught up in everything. So these audios are designed for you to just press play and listen and give a bit of an interrupter and a reset to all those different parts, your body, your brain, your emotions, and your nervous system. So that's super fun, and that'll be in the resource library, as well as I'll probably do some meditations. I've got some really great cheat sheets that, again, can be used when you need them. Like I've been working on a few for if you feel overwhelmed, you can do this little cheat sheet. And I'm hoping to create a flow chart. I think that's what it's called. You know how magazines used to have quizzes that have little arrows? When you say yes, you go this way. When you say no, you go this way. And you go through all the boxes. I want to create one like that. I think that would be really cool. That one's a little bit more complicated, but at the moment I have some that will help guide you. I've got a cheat sheet for prioritizing and for letting go of things that aren't a priority right now to help you clear out some space in your brain and to feel less overwhelmed about things. And basically I'm just super, I almost said overwhelmed. I'm super excited and enthusiastic about offering this resource. So if you're interested in any of that, go over to marleydarling.com and I hope that you find those things helpful in your life. The other thing I'm so excited about is that I'm reviving my Facebook group. It's so exciting because I just really can't wait to connect with more of you and be able to hear what you think about certain things, how you're using the tools, how you're implementing them in your life, any changes you've seen, anything you want to see, anything I can help you with. I just really am passionate about helping people and making change and offering insights and shifts that actually create change in your life. If I can help take the stress off, remove some of the struggle, make the load lighter and bring some more joy and freedom to your life, that's like the biggest gift to me. That is why I do this. So I can't wait to connect with people and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. So if you're interested, I would absolutely love to see you there and to connect with you personally. Now let's move on to Life Lounge. And in Life Lounge this week, I'm talking about the mind. I had a great conversation earlier this week with a fellow ADHD entrepreneur mum, and we talked about consistency, as I spoke about earlier, as well as the expansion and contraction of getting lots of ideas. The thing with ADHD is when you start to get momentum, often when you're following through on your idea, you'll get more. It will just compound, multiply like rabbits. And then suddenly you've got these ideas hopping all over the place and you might get distracted and start to chase them. But the challenge, like I said earlier, to create that consistency is to keep your eye on that first rabbit. Maybe you can mark it in some way, put a cute little ribbon around its neck. And what that metaphor might mean is that you write it down. You know the goal you're headed towards. You know the thing that you're working on. And when you get these other ideas, they're probably great ideas. You can write them down in a separate list, ideas to come back to later when it's time. And maybe they will all lead to the same path. If you're a business person, that would be your end goal, whatever product you're creating. But in business, you do not need all these side quests. You do not need a side quest of creating an ebook. That's a whole thing in itself. You do not need a side quest of starting a podcast. You need to focus on the main thing and use some strategies, but don't start building 1,000 different bridges. Choose the one thing to work towards. So when those extra ideas come, have a place to write them down. What I like to use is something like Google Docs because it's searchable. If I used a notebook, I would probably lose it. Not in terms of the whole notebook. I'm pretty good at not losing things like that, but you can't find where things are in a notebook. It's just so much easier digitally. So that's what I like to do personally. And I like to label it something really clear, like 2025 business ideas and side quests or something like that. So I can find when I did it, what it's related to, and, know that it's ideas. And maybe even general ideas for business rather than ideas about a certain thing. And now I always relate things back to business, but this comes in terms of hobbies and things like that as well. Plans that you have for life, things that you want to do, anything like that. It is helpful to build that one bridge and put things to the side, even when they feel like really exciting, shiny new ideas and shiny new projects. I find it really interesting that there tends to be this expansion and contraction of ideas with ADHD. It feels like it's kind of all or nothing, but in this breathing sort of way. It expands and then it contracts back down and then it expands again. And sometimes when it's contracted, it can feel less exciting. It can feel a bit small because you don't have all this novelty. And then as it starts to grow and you get all those ideas, it's so exciting. And that's why I say, instead of getting caught up and chasing all those rabbits, write them down and realize that it can still be exciting without you chasing them. Then what happens is you're starting to focus back in to where you were initially. So it's almost like you're breathing around your main focus, if you can always come back to that. Imagine like a glowing light and some kind of balloon or bubble around it that's expanding and contracting. That's the image that's coming to my mind at the moment. So the trick in terms of ADHD is to know what that glowing thing is in the middle and get used to the expansion and contraction of your ideas, of your motivation. And it can feel like a roller coaster. It can feel up and down. But that's where we need to acknowledge how ADHD works differently. And it's okay for this breathing motion. It's okay for this in and out. It's okay for this expansion and contraction. When you learn to recognize it and sit with it and accept it for what it is and learn how to work with it to still be moving towards what you want, to live the life you want to have without getting distracted along the way or getting frazzled with chasing too many rabbits or getting disappointed in yourself because you haven't followed through on something. If you can learn to follow through the ADHD way, if you can foster your self-esteem and self-confidence because you learn to have consistency the ADHD way, you learn not to chase all the squirrels, even though the squirrels are there and are distracting and you're paying attention to them, that's fine too. This is the ADHD way, and this is how we learn to accept our ADHD, work with our ADHD, and create the ADHD way of doing things instead of trying to fit into that neurotypical world. So that's that for Life Lounge. Enjoy break this week. It's been probably, I don't know when exactly this happened. I really want to say this as my joy break, and it's obviously not something that I'm doing regularly as my joy break. And by the time this podcast episode comes out, it will have been a couple of weeks since it happened. But a really beautiful thing that brought me joy recently was that I woke up in the night and I needed the loo, and I couldn't use the downstairs loo, so I had to go upstairs. I was tired and half asleep and stumbling through the dark. I had my hand on the wall and was thinking, look, I hope I walk up these stairs safely. You know that feeling when you want to stay half asleep so you can get back to bed. It was 4:30 in the morning and I was halfway up the stairs and I looked up and I saw the moon. I love to see the moon. I pay attention to the moon. It was a full moon and it only took a few moments for me to realize, hang on, that moon does not look like the moon every other day. That moon is glowing red and oh my gosh, I remembered what I'd seen in the news. There was a full lunar eclipse. And when I'd heard about it, I thought, I don't want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the lunar eclipse. I know they're rare, but I value my sleep, so I'll wait until there's one at a time that I can see a bit more easily. But there I was, and I had happened to wake up at just the right time. It was the peak of the eclipse. The moon was glowing red. and I was going to the upstairs toilet like I wouldn't usually, and I happened to see it. All those things aligned so that I could see the lunar eclipse. And I thought, you know what? I'm here now. I'm awake. The universe woke me up at this exact time. Circumstances aligned, and here I am. I'm going to go and rouse my kids. And one of them was very asleep, so I wasn't going to jostle her incredibly. I tried talking to her. She didn't wake up, so I just left her. It wasn't meant to be. She needed her sleep. But the other one woke up, and I said, come out, come and see the lunar eclipse. And she came out, and we stood outside looking up at this moon together, talking about the moon and having this special moment together, viewing this lunar eclipse. And we watched as the shadow of the earth moved off the moon. And I actually, when I initially saw it, I thought it was going to, I thought it was before it had reached totality, but it turns out I'd just seen it while it was still glowing red. It would have just reached totality and been creeping away again, which I'm so lucky that I got to see that and had the absolute ideal perfect timing, and that my daughter got to come out and share that special moment with me. So that was a little joy moment of this week. It wasn't an intentional joy break. It wasn't something I've been doing for myself, but it was really beautiful, and I wanted to share that with you. Now, in terms of letting go and letting in, what I'm letting go of is any self-sabotage, like I talked about in terms of building those bridges. I've grown so much over the last few years. I've had so many things happen in my life, and I've had to push through, and I always keep coming back to this path. So I'm absolutely learning how to do that. And I'm letting in this energy of just keeping on, just moving forward, doing it for fun, doing it for the plot, throwing spaghetti at the wall, see where it goes and where I'm at in 10 years. Sometimes we feel like we have to have results straight away, and if we don't see them, then it's the end of the world and we need to try something different. But if you can just carry on with even a small action, then you'll see results over time. Imagine where you'll be in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, if you just do whatever small action it is to move towards the place you want to be, towards the person you want to be, towards a thing that you want to achieve. So that's what I'm letting in, that kind of energy of just keeping on and knowing that small steps have that incremental gain, and the better it gets, versus having pressure. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode. If you like the podcast, I would love if you share it. And if you're interested, if you are an ADHD mum, if you resonate to what I'm saying, which if you've listened to 30 minutes of this podcast and if you listen to other episodes, I'm sure that there's something here that you're relating to. If that's you, I would absolutely love to have you in the Facebook group and also in the resource library, so you can start using some additional tools that I'm creating, because I'm creating them for you. For us, for women like us, for the version of me who didn't have someone to guide me through and had to figure this all out by myself over the last 15 years. So please come and join me and invite any of your friends who are in the same boat, because when we have this community kick-started and growing, it's going to be a really great place to hang out and support each other and move forward and feel better and function better, so we can have fulfilling lives with less struggle and less stress. So both of those links will be down in the show notes, and otherwise I will talk to you in the next podcast episode. Have an excellent week. Bye. Hey darling, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'm so excited to share with you that we now have a Facebook group. We're bringing back community. We are mingling with like-minded women, other ADHD moms, and going on this journey together. I would absolutely love to see you there. The link is in the show notes. And the other thing I'm so excited about is the resource library that I've been working on to bring you free tools, including press play audios, so you can shortcut your way to feeling better and functioning better. The link for that is also in the show notes, and I really just can't wait to see how these things help. And it's my absolute mission to help mums like you have less stress and more flow in their lives. So come on over and connect with me. Look into the show notes and go and do both those things right now, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.